And you can do it just, as you say, in your own head. Or you can set up a conversation with a third person.
Yes.
A friend.
Yes.
You can just say, look, you be them,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to run through a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And you respond just as you think.
Very powerful again in a coaching context. You know, someone having like an interview or a difficult conversation they have to have with their boss, you know, and let's say I'm coaching them, I'll be the boss. And guess what? The amazing thing is as well that, you know, once you get into it, you let it go, you let the conversation flow, you don't script it, but obviously you get guidance from the client as to the sort of things that they're going to talk about.
Actually, you don't have
it just comes naturally.
You know,
you're almost saying exactly what the boss would say. You
do. This is a process, systemic processes like this, where you know, with no script, no background, no information.
Yeah.
The third person just becomes.
Yeah.
And they, you know, can have a conversation and work it out and be resolved. And the amazing thing is that whoever that person is representing, somewhere else, wherever they are in the world, is affected.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, there's been situations where, you know, a son or daughter is having problems with a parent, and they just have it out, you know, in this third way, you know, with a third, you know, stranger. They have it.
The whole dynamic changes.
And by the end of it,
yeah,
they get a phone call from the parent. Just been thinking about you. Can we?
Yeah, can we make it up? Whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely.
There's something so very weird in how we're all connected.
Well, it's a bit like the 100th monkey, isn't it? It's that. It's that element.
There's some connections there.
And we are all connected, but to use that, and because we think in terms of individuality and separateness, and we think in terms of, well, you know, it's like, you know, we have our own boxes, don't we? And it's like, you know, I can't do that. So I was talking to someone the other day about how I talk to my mother, right? My mother's been dead now for, what is it, almost 18 months. Just less, and you know, people look at me and think, what, you know, but what's the reality and what's not the reality? You know, if you believe as I do, and you don't have to believe it, you can still do it, you know, that there is eternal life, if you like. I won't say life after death. I don't want to go into reincarnation, but there is eternal life. That, you know, that my mother's energy, her spirit, has just moved into a different dimension, as my step-grandfather used to say, he's just gone into the next room, you know. Then, you know, same thing. Why can't I have a conversation with her? Of course I can, you know. And, you know, she may or may not respond. Doesn't matter, you know, but I can say things to my mother that I would have liked to have said during her lifetime, but maybe I didn't. You know, and people think once they're dead, that's it, you've lost the chance. No,
you haven't.
You haven't.
You haven't actually. I mean, there is a very interesting concept within Hinduism that, you know, when we depart this world, and, you know, there's different models. I mean, obviously Hinduism believes in reincarnation, but actually there's almost two states once we depart. There is the Atma, the soul, kind of moving into its new kind of existence, and almost forgetting about the last one, in the same way as we can't remember where we were before him. Sometimes we might have inklings, you know, and there is kind of studies, but generally we know very little and remember very little. So when we move into our next one, we're going to remember very little about this one. But at the same time the Atma is doing that, there's almost what a karmic station for that being, which is a place where those who are left behind can communicate with. And, you know, it receives.
It's like a receiving station, like a radio receiver.
It's somehow or other. It's almost like, you know, the mobile phones. You know, you've kind of got, you know, cell phones in all in different places. They've moved on, but you can contact them through the kind of the station, which then sends out the messages. Or it may not be received. It's not that in the next life, oh my God, I've just had a message from Glenn. Who the hell is Glenn? Oh yeah, my son. It's not like that. But somehow or other, it comes through subtly, as a kind of nurturing spirit, you know, as a nurturing kind of energy to you. So there is this station where you can kind of relate to, and
Okay.
you can do,
Okay.
you know, there's even ceremonies that you can do service to kind of help that person or to express your gratitude or your love for them.
Does the Hindu tradition have a big ancestral tradition? I mean, do they?
Yeah.
They're like some of the indigenous tribes. They have a strong, you know, sort of ancestral worship, and how does that work?
Well, yes, I mean, you know, they used to actually have these type of Brahmins who would go around and memorize all the lineages of everyone in the village.
Wow.
And so they'd say, Glenn, oh, you're the son of...
Blah 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 blah,
And then
blah,
the
blah
grandson-
before him.
And you could go all the way back.
Gosh.
And it's actually astounding what they can do, because now in the West we're kind of looking up, you know, we're using the internet
now
and we've
we're
got
doing it.
computers and we're trying to... And I just about know my great-grandfather's names. But I can't go any further back than that, you know? I mean, I'd have to do an awful lot of research, but everyone in these communities, in these villages in rural India, you know, the Brahmin come and say, oh, no, they memorized it from their father, who memorized, you know.
Yeah.
And
It's almost like
they can
like passing down a recipe or something over generations or whatever.
and they can just kind of recite all these lineages, which is utterly astounding. So, yes, there is a very strong kind of connection. So, this kind of station they call Pitraloka, the place of the forefathers. But it's not that the forefathers are sitting there doing things, waiting for, you know, anything to happen.
No.
It's not like a heaven or something.
Yeah.
It's actually just, you know, a communication station where they exist almost in a virtual form, but their real activity is kind of going on elsewhere in some, you know, new incarnation.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a very interesting concept,
Uh-huh.
but it's a model again, but it's a model that kind of allows us to feel that actually it's a welcome thing to try and communicate. It's not for, you know, Uncle Fred, where did you leave the insurance policy? You know, it's not like that. But you know, I don't expect necessarily that they're going to come back and do, you know, some kind of Victorian.
But you might get an
seance.
answer to that too. You might get an answer to
Who
that
knows?
too. Maybe not from Fred.
It may not be from, you know, you might just find that, you know, things will turn up. If you raise the question, the universe will respond somehow or other. But
that must be right in a universally connected universe. I mean, it's like, how do you suddenly? Because sometimes I think to myself, I mean, I was looking for a book, actually Tony Parsons' book, and I think, where did I put it? And days, and I just left it, and then suddenly I opened the wardrobe, and it literally almost fell out on me, you know.
Well,
so
here's a you know, talking about just little freaky things like this. The other day, Roy, you know, helps with the maintenance around here, and I were in one of the sheds up at the coach house, just kind of going through to seeing if there was any kind of doors we could use for replacing something here. And my two dogs were kind of running around, and then I had to come out and I left Roy there. And then later in the day I was like, I see one of the dogs, but where's the other one? You know, I thought, it hasn't come up to the office with me. Checked at the cottage, wasn't there. I thought, that's strange. And then later on, my son said he went out to kick a football in the courtyard. Now, he hasn't done that probably for a year, you know.
yeah,
But he kicked the ball against the barn door. And he he saw these little paws. And he realised the dog had
got stuck
Roy,
behind.
you know, must have closed the door, and he hadn't realised that the dog was still in there.
Wow.
And why was my son kicking a football that afternoon and kicked it against the very door?
Yes.
The chances of that actually happening, you know, okay, you can say coincidence, and of course,
No, I love those stories.
but
there are no
it was just
amazing.
a real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd probably find it the next day, but
think of it this way. Think of it this way, Martin. That's happening all the time.
It is.
It's happening all the time, but we don't recognise it.
No, and I think we impoverish our lives by saying coincidence.
Exactly.
Because coincidence is not an explanation.
No.
It's denying that there is explanation.
Exactly.
And actually, how much richer is life when there is explanation?